Were we always meant to work against each other?
In a town called Seabrook, a mysterious galactic moonstone turns people into zombies, werewolves, and aliens. Despite their differences, everyone has lived in harmony like one big family for many years. Some of the teenagers who grew up in the town now attend a school called Mountain College, and they've met a lot of people from many places. They've also heard many stories, including one about a place called Mount Rayburn, where it is believed that another moonstone landed many years ago. The moonstone created two new monsters, the Daywalkers and the Vampires. It also created blood fruit, which is a powerful energy source that both creatures need to survive. Even though they initially lived in peace for years, they eventually began to fight over their precious food source. The relationship between the two monster groups grew worse over the years, and as their differences turned into suspicion and fear, they locked themselves off from each other.
But over the years, they began to fight over their precious food source.
In the present day, at the end of freshman year at Mountain College, a zombie named Zed looks excited to be going on summer break. While in the football team's locker room, Zed talks about being a star player, but one of his teammates throws a ball at him and calls him a bench warmer. Zed says he'll become a starter one day, and the coach gives him a flyer for a summer football camp that should help him improve his basic skills. Even though going to the camp would mean spending less time with his friends and family during the summer, Zed still seems interested. Elsewhere, Zed's girlfriend, Addison, also prepares for the summer break after cheerleading practice with her mates. Addison used to think being an alien would make it easy for her to be a star in the cheer team, but the other girls happen to be really good. Since Addison really wants to become cheer captain one day, she decides to attend a world-class cheer camp during the break. Shortly after, she leaves the school with Zed and two of their friends, Willa, a werewolf, and Eliza, a zombie.
That sounds like a great plan to me.
Elsewhere on Mount Rayburn, a daywalker named Nova organizes an intense training session for other kids like her. During the training, Nova stops to remind the other kids that their blood fruit is dying, and they'll have to find more if they want to survive. As she tells them to continue training, one of the young daywalkers asks Nova why she has to join the others, even though she'll probably not be allowed to follow them to retrieve the blood fruit they need. Nova says the young girl will protect the town in their absence, and this makes her happy. As Nova hugs the girl, she gets a vision of a boy named Victor. Nova looks confused because she doesn't know who he is, but she has been seeing him in her visions for a while. As she gets lost in her thoughts, Nova's father, who is also the leader of the Daywalkers, Commander Bright, snaps her out of it. Nova says she was just doing a little self-reflection, and Bright tells her to come with him because they need to talk.
Come on, we need to talk.
As Nova then talks about her visions, Bright says they don't have time for that. He adds that they should be more concerned about their orchard, because if it's dying, it means the vampires might be too. He also mentions that he's sure the vampires will try to destroy them to get the last batch of blood fruit from the main orchard. Nova doesn't really understand why her dad is so scared of the vampires, and she asks how long they'll continue to live in fear of people that they've never even seen. Bright says they'll continue to be careful for as long as he's in charge, because he knows what it takes to keep everyone safe. He adds that if Nova wants to lead one day, she'll have to follow in his footsteps. Nova has doubts about this, and as Bright notices it, he asks if he can count on her. Nova says he can, and almost immediately, another daywalker named Ray walks up to meet them. Ray looks excited to be among the daywalkers who will be heading out in search of blood fruit. He says he'd like to be in front, so that if the vampires try to mess with them on the way, he'll take them down immediately.
Make way for Ray!
Bright looks impressed and asks if Ray will follow all his orders, and he says he will. Bright then tells Nova to inform everyone that it's time for the trip, and she does just this. Elsewhere, in Shady Side, where the vampires live, they start preparing for their trip to get more blood fruit. A vampire named Victor eventually arrives at the scene and meets his friends, Vargas and Vera. Vera seems pissed that Victor is late again, and she complains explains that the leader of the vampires, Eldris, has been asking about him. As she says she can't keep covering up for him, he shows her the blood fruit he just got. Vera looks happy and thanks him for it, but he says he brought it for the three of them to celebrate their journey away from Shadyside. Vera and Vargas don't look as excited as Victor because they've never left Shadyside. However, Victor says he just wants to explore the world outside Shadyside, and that's why he's so happy. Almost immediately, Eldris announces that it's time for the vampires to begin their journey, and they all look excited.
The harvest is upon us!
Meanwhile, Zed and Addison seem quite focused on what they want to achieve in their respective camps, and Willa and Eliza wonder why they can't just find a way to balance their school and monster-related activities for the summer. As Zed talks about his football camp, a strange pulse hits his special bracelet called the Z-Band, which suppresses his zombie traits. Almost immediately, Zed loses control of his car and accidentally removes the steering wheel. This eventually leads to a crash, but Zed and the others survive. Zed's Z-Band starts working well again, and Addison looks happy to see that he's back to normal. Eliza says they need to split up to find help, and Willa uses her powers to sense something up ahead. She then tells Eliza to come with her so they can cover more ground. As they leave, Addison and Zed decide to head in separate directions. On the way, Addison suddenly walks past an invisible wall where day turns into night. She looks shocked by this, and as she wonders where she is, she sees Shadyside and decides to find her way there to get help. Meanwhile, Zed also goes through an invisible wall, but he doesn't notice it because the sun is still up on the other side. He looks excited when he sees a nearby town, but as he heads toward it, Nova, Ray, and some other Daywalkers see him. They assume that he's a vampire, and they quickly charge toward him. Nova knocks him down immediately, but he explains that he's a zombie. As she asks how he got close to their town, he says he doesn't know. He adds that after his Z-Band malfunctioned, his car crashed into the woods, and he's just looking for someone to help him. Ray doesn't believe this, but before he can blast a fireball at Zed, Nova stops him. Bright sees this and asks why Nova doesn't want the intruder to be destroyed. Ray says Zed could even be a spy for the vampires, but Nova says she doesn't think so. Bright asks how she knows, and she says that Zed doesn't have fangs. She adds that, unlike the stories Bright has told them about vampires being evil and ruthless, Zed looks nothing like them because he's just green and clueless.
No thanks.
Yeah, no thanks, no thanks.
Zed looks disappointed when he hears this, but Nova says they could use another recruit on their team. Bright agrees to let Zed stay with them, and he adds that the zombie is now Nova's responsibility. Elsewhere, Addison suddenly bumps into the vampires, and as they assume that she's a Daywalker, Vera attacks her. Almost immediately, Victor saves Addison, and Vera asks why he saved the Daywalker. Addison says she's a cheerleader, not a Daywalker, but the vampires don't believe her. Eldris also seems pissed at Victor for saving Addison, and he tries to compliment her dress to calm her down. Interestingly, Eldris is Victor's aunt, and she mentions that even though their family bloodline overflows with vigilant, hard-working leaders, Victor is nothing like that. The other vampires find this funny, and Victor feels embarrassed. As Eldris tells her guards to take the intruder to the dungeon, Addison tells them to wait. She then shows them her bracelet, which helps prove that she's part alien. Eldris seems convinced by this, and Victor suggests letting Addison join their army.
Why should she get to kick back and relax in the dungeon?
Eldris agrees, but she says that Addison is Victor's prisoner. She adds that if anything goes wrong, Victor will be thrown in the dungeon. After this, Eldris and the other vampires walk away, and Vera bumps into Victor. A book falls from Victor's pocket, and as Addison picks it up, she sees a drawing of a girl on it. Addison then asks who it is, but Victor says he doesn't know, and it's just someone he dreams about. Elsewhere, Zed asks Nova if the vampires are so evil because he noticed how the Daywalkers quickly tried to attack him. Nova realizes that he doesn't know anything about them, and she gets the other Daywalkers to sing about how they get their powers from the sun. Coincidentally, Victor and the other vampires also sing for Addison, and they mention that they only come out under the moon. After they're done, Zed and Addison walk with their respective teams toward a tunnel leading to the main orchard. As they go through the tunnels and unlock the gates, the two groups of monsters continue walking toward the orchard. Suddenly, the Daywalkers spot the vampires right behind them, and Bright tells his group to run as fast as they can. Eldris also instructs the vampires to do the same thing, but as they reach the orchard, the two groups realize that it's locked. Zed and Addison are excited to be back together, but Nova looks shocked when she sees Victor because he's the boy from her dreams. Victor also recognizes Nova as the girl from his dreams, but they don't say anything to each other. Suddenly, Bright tells the vampires to explain why they're at the orchard. Eldris doesn't believe the vampires owe the Daywalkers any explanation, and she calls them thieves for trying to steal from the orchard. The two groups then try to attack each other, but Willa shows up and stops them. Vera says she'll just fly over the fence to get into the orchard, but Eliza tells her that it's not safe. As she looks confused, Eliza throws a brick to show that there's an invisible force field just above the fence. This leaves everyone shocked, and they start wondering how they'll get into the orchard. Addison says it looks like they need 3 keys, and Eliza spots a clue on the gate, which will help find the first one.
There's a clue under the first key.
Bright still tries to get the Daywalkers to attack the vampires, but Addison stops them and says she has a suggestion. She then mentions that if both teams can assemble a group of their young leaders, she and her friends will help them find the keys. Zed says they can split the harvest, and Willa adds that they can stay at the nearby camp. Eldris asks why she should trust them, and Addison says it's because she and her friends are living proof that all monsters can work together, irrespective of their differences. Bright then agrees to let the young Daywalkers work with the vampires, and Eldris also supports the idea. However, as everyone heads toward the camp, Bright tells Nova to take all the blood fruits for the Daywalkers, even if it means destroying the vampires. Nova says she thought they agreed to share the harvest, but Bright insists that the blood fruits belong to the Daywalkers. Nova looks confused, but Ray fully supports Bright's plan because he doesn't like the vampires. Shortly after, they arrive at the camp, and Ray quickly provokes the vampires.
I'll teach you to mess with Daywalkers.
Before a fight starts, Zed stops them and jokes about how he'll be their counselor at the camp. Almost immediately, they all notice that there are Daywalker and vampire symbols everywhere. Ray says the place probably belonged to the Daywalkers before vampires stole and ruined it. Vera quickly defends her group, but Nova just heads over to find a cabin for the Daywalkers. Zed and his friends also find the staff cabin, and as Willa complains that the place is dusty, Eliza says she'll just set up her sensor in a corner so she can try to get a read on the pulse that messed with Zed's Z-band. After the vampires also find their cabin, Willa tells them to get some sleep, but Vera asks why they should listen to her. Willa then scares them with her fangs, and they go to bed immediately. Shortly after, Zed and Addison sit outside and talk about how it has been a tough year for them. Zed says it's good that they now have this little unplanned adventure, which involves helping new friends who help them. As they talk about Nova and Victor, Addison asks if they remind Zed of anything.
Do they remind you of anyone we know?
Zed says they're just like him and Addison, who are from 2 different monster groups that used to be enemies. Later that night, while Nova is walking outside the cabin, she sees Victor and cannot believe that the person from her dreams is real. Victor also feels the same way and seems amazed that they're now in the same place. The next morning, the Daywalkers try to attack the vampires, but Willa scares them away with her fangs. Nova then thanks Addison for helping them so far. Addison says it's the least she could do, especially because Nova stopped the other Daywalkers from killing Zed. Nova says it wasn't a problem, and she mentions that Addison and her friends are really taking on a lot because the vampires and Daywalkers have always hated each other. Addison then says she thinks it might be easier for the other Daywalkers to team up with the vampires if they see Nova working with Victor. Nova says she's fine with the idea, and Zed tells Victor the same thing. Victor also agrees to work with Nova, but as Zed tells the other vampires about the possibility of working with the Daywalkers, they don't like this.
You and the Daywalkers are gonna have to work side by side.
The Daywalkers also insist on working alone to find the keys because they believe they're superior. As they all argue about it, Zed and Addison try to make them understand the benefits of working together. During the argument, Nova and Victor get the chance to talk about their visions of each other. However, as Victor is about to touch Nova to see if she's real, she knocks him to the ground. Victor looks shocked, but Nova quickly apologizes and blames her strong reflexes. As the two groups continue dancing and arguing, they eventually figure out the clue to find the first key. After Nova finds it, she uses it to open the first gate, and everyone looks happy. They then see the second clue, but no one understands what it means. Later that night, the vampires and the Daywalkers start getting close to each other, and before going to their respective bunks, Nova and Victor say goodnight to their rivals. Zed and his friends look impressed because they're slowly getting the vampires and Daywalkers to work together. As they then sit to talk, Addison says it's quite cool that they're counselors at the camp.
Having a great time. Having a great time.
Eliza says freshman year was really tough for everyone, but Willa believes it was more hectic for Zed and Addison because of their personal goals. Zed and Addison believe they have to remain focused, but Willa says there's more to life than being cheer captain or a football star. Eliza also mentions that they have to make time for the ones they love, but Zed just changes the topic, as he and Addison then talk about how they can't just settle for less in their respective teams. A strange pulse hits four of them and affects their bracelets. This leaves them shocked, and they immediately head to the staff cabin. Eliza says she initially thought the pulse only affected Zed, but since it's increasing in power and frequency, it won't be long before it reaches Seabrook and affects their families. Shortly after, Nova and Victor meet outside their cabins, and Ray sees them. Victor eventually tells Nova to come with him to check out what he found earlier. Following this, he takes her to a cave with vampire and Daywalker symbols on the walls. Victor says he thinks both groups used to come there on purpose in the past.
Looks like both of our villages used to come here together.
But Nova thinks it's unlikely because they now hate each other. Victor says he doesn't hate her, and Nova mentions that they'll still have to work on it with the others. She adds that she thinks he'll be a good leader for the vampires, but Victor says he wants to leave Shadyside, not lead it. Nova asks why, and Victor says he wants to explore the world. Nova believes he has the right qualities to be a leader, and Victor says no one has ever had so much faith in him. He adds that he can now see why her dad thinks she'll be a good leader. Nova laments that her dad wants her to follow in his footsteps, even though she doesn't want to. Victor then says he's sure she'll do the right thing when the time comes. Nova looks happy when she hears this, and she says being with him makes her believe there's nothing she can't do. Shortly after, they figure out what the second clue means and find the next key inside the cave. The next day, they show everyone the key, and Victor unlocks the second gate. As everyone looks excited because there's one key left, the ground suddenly vibrates and a huge stone moves up to the surface. Everyone then sees the message near the stone, which says that only one team can win. Victor and Nova don't understand this, and they wonder if they've always been meant to fight each other. Ray and Vera don't think there's a different meaning to the message, and they get both groups to go up against each other. As Zed shouts at them to stop, the pulse hits again and weakens him. Everyone looks shocked, and Zed is taken to the staff cabin. Eliza then realizes that the pulse is frying Zed's Z-band because it's very sensitive. Addison looks worried about Zed, but he tells her to check up on the campers. After Addison leaves the cabin, Eliza says she thinks she has found where the pulse is coming from. Following this, she heads out with Zed and Willa. Shortly after, Eliza shows them a hole where the pulse is coming from. Zed says he'll go in first, and Eliza tells him to be careful. As the girls try to lower him slowly, the rope suddenly snaps, and they also fall into the hole. Addison hears Zed's screams and immediately leaves with the campers to find him and the others. Meanwhile, at the bottom of the hole, Eliza and Willa quickly help Zed before he gets crushed by a rock. After this, they see a broken tower right on the roots of the blood fruit. They then realize that the broken tower is hurting the roots and causing the pulse. As they try to lift the tower, Addison arrives with the vampires and the Daywalkers, who quickly join them. After they move the tower away from the roots, they all look really happy, and Nova and Victor start wondering if the message near the stone means they have to be one team. Ray and Vera don't believe this, and as both groups start arguing again, Addison stops them and narrates how she and her friends were also taught to hate each other in Seabrook. She says it's not a good way to live, and they're now proof that real change can only happen if they find strength in each other's differences. The two groups seem inspired by this, but Ray and Vera still have doubts about working together. As they leave the hole, Ray tells Nova that they have to steal all the blood fruits for the Daywalkers.
Your leader is depending on you.
Vera hears this while walking by, and she looks shocked. However, she walks away before Nova goes against Ray's plan and insists that she's working with the vampires to share the blood fruit. Later that night, though, Nova starts wondering if she's making the right decision for her people. The next morning, both groups push the stone toward the right hole, and they also work together to get the key. After this, the last gate is opened, and they all walk in looking excited. Almost immediately, Bright and Eldris arrive and lay claim to the blood fruits in the orchard. Bright thanks Ray for calling him, and he scolds his daughter for not taking all the blood fruits for her people. Victor looks shocked because he thinks Nova was going to do that earlier, but Eldris also scolds him and thanks Vera for calling her. As Bright and Eldris try to attack each other, they accidentally burn down half of the blood fruits in the orchard. This causes the pulse to hit again, and Zed gets weaker. Ray cannot believe what the two leaders have just done to the field, but Nova says he's at fault for calling Bright.
You destroyed nearly half the blood fruit.
Bright and Eldris still lay claim to the remaining half, and they threaten to go to war for the blood fruits. As they leave to bring back their armies, Bright says he's really disappointed in Nova for not doing what's best for her people. Shortly after, Nova tries to explain to Victor that she didn't want to steal all the blood fruits, but he doesn't listen to her. He then enters the vampire's room and scolds Vera for calling Eldris. Vera says she was only doing what she had to do because she heard what Ray said. As she says she wanted to feel safe, Victor asks if she now feels that way. Vera then realizes that he's right, but he just walks away. Elsewhere, Eliza tells her friends that the pulse is back and stronger because of the fire. She adds that they have to go back to check up on the roots so she can scan them. When they get there, Zed looks scared and tells Addison that if he fully becomes a zombie, she doesn't have to stay with him. Addison doesn't care about this, and she tries to be positive. As Eliza then scans the roots and notices that the pulse will soon be too strong for all of them to bear.
Well, that's fantastic.
Victor comes over to meet them. Nova also enters the room and apologizes for what happened. She then says she believes they got visions of each other for a reason, but she doesn't know what it is. Suddenly, they notice that the roots are identical to the ones in their respective orchards. They also look at the top of the tower and figure out that they're supposed to bring the moonstones from their towns together to revive the roots. Nova and Victor don't think they'll be able to steal the moonstones because they're usually well guarded, but Zed and Addison encourage them. Nova and Victor then meet with their respective groups and come up with a plan. While they head to their respective towns to get the moonstones, the other vampires and Daywalkers work together to harvest all the blood fruits in the orchard before Bright and Eldris return with their armies. Shortly after, Nova beats up some guards to steal the Daywalkers' moonstone, and Victor also takes the other one while Vera fights the guards. Much later, Bright and Eldris return to the orchard and notice that the blood fruits are gone. They then track the campers to the tower room and realize that the kids harvested the blood fruits. Almost immediately, Nova and Victor enter the room with the moonstones. Eldris and Bright don't seem to like their idea, but the kids still proceed to climb the tower while their friends defend them. Unfortunately, the tower gets bent at one point, and Zed is forced to take off his Z-band so he can fully use his powers to put it back properly. Just then, Victor and Nova put the stones at the top of the tower, and this causes an energy surge that causes rain to fall. Everyone looks excited, and the moonstones also heal the roots and cause more blood fruits to grow in the orchard. Addison also gives Zed his Z-band, and as he touches one of the roots, his powers get stabilized. Willa then mentions that keeping both moonstones apart for too long caused their private orchids to die. nearby. Nova and Victor also realize that their ancestors built the tower room and the camp so they could meet once a year to celebrate and bring balance to their orchards and the world.
We'll bring balance to our orchards and our world!
Everyone rejoices when they hear this, and with the war between both groups now over, Bright looks proud of Nova and says that the future of their people is in good hands. Eldris also praises Victor and says she believes he's ready to step up as a leader. After this, they all return to the camp to celebrate. The next day, Zed and Addison decide to abandon their summer goals because they think it's more important for them to spend time with their friends and families. They both look happy with this decision, and they head back to Seabrook with Willa and Eliza. Elsewhere, Victor says goodbye to Nova as she heads back to her town. As they hug each other, they suddenly see a strange sea tornado swirling over the ocean, and this leaves them shocked. After Zed and his friends crash into the woods, they come across two monster groups about to go to war over a special fruit. Zed and his friends then convince them to work together and find strength in each other's differences instead of fighting. Even though things don't go well at first, Nova and Victor eventually get their groups to cooperate, and with this, they're able to restore their orchards and live in harmony. In this story, we learn that solving problems peacefully often brings about harmony that benefits everyone.